Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Money Matters on KPFT Houston, is what I'm used to saying every Friday morning at 11 a.m. However, we are still broadcasting live from the middle bedroom in my home. And we are in lockdown on COVID-19 right now. And so we've been lucky enough to have the guest Laurence Kotlikoff with us today. And we are, Larry, you are one of the few guests that has been a repeat guest on the show. You are the author of the book, Get What's Yours, Social Security, with the co-author, Philip Mahler. We've had you on the show separate from that as well when you're FinTech came out on some of the solutions for Social Security. And this week you were published in an article on ThinkAdvisor that weighed the question, should cash-strapped seniors claim Social Security early? So I want to thank you once again for joining us on the show.
Sure. That's great. There's any time, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Such a great article. And it's very good information that I want to get out to people because I'm hearing some of these same questions kind of bubble up there. So we're going to be respectful of your time. We've only got, this is a shorter version of the show. We've only got about 20 minutes or so. So let's start with the big elephant in the room, because one of the things that you talked about in the article was kind of the macro and the micro outlook for the economy. Can you share some of your thoughts on that with us?
Well, I tend to be a little bit more of the doom and gloom type economist, but so I hope I'm not interjecting my own kind of personality or whatever into my projections. But I see major trouble here. I think we're going to have a depression larger than the Great Depression. I think we're going to see output fall by about 40% second quarter. We just seen first quarter's GDP fell about 6% compared to the last quarter of 2019. That's the biggest drop since 2008. I think it's actually a bigger drop than we saw in 2008 at the peak. I think it was 4%. Now we've got 6% first quarter. I think we're at a 40% drop. And just to give you an idea what that means, this says that over 3 months, we're going to have output fall 40%, possibly maybe 30%, but somewhere 30 to 40%. And that compares with output dropping 26%, not over 3 months, but over 3 years in the Great Depression. That was the peak fall from the peak to the trough, 26% drop. We're talking about 40% drop in 3 months. So it just shows you what we're in a whole different world. And I don't see that the administration has any real game plan for getting us out of this. Although if people go to kotlikoff.net, I have a number of columns at kotlikoff.net, KOTLIKOFF, where they can read about group testing, which is really the solution where you test a whole bunch of people, households together in one batch. And if the batch turns out to be test negative, then you can release all those people with a green bracelet to the society. And that's how we can separate the healthy from the sick and be safe and get the economy immediately back to work. But the White House doesn't seem to want to consider this, even though I've written about it quite a bit. And state governors don't necessarily want to take this on. But it's not really that big a deal to do group testing. It's been done for about 60 years in different contexts.
So I'm shaking my head yes. Yes to all of that. I agree with that. So you're not doom and gloom. I feel as though this might have been the tipping point event for some bad fundamentals to start with. And so I will just validate yes to all of that. I in my active managed portfolios, I went to cash and bonds on February 28th. So I'm very much sitting on the same side of the fence as you with that. But with that being said, we're not giving general investment advice across the board, but I agree from a macro perspective that very very much so there. Some of the things you just mentioned were the testing, the group testing, and that's something that you mentioned in the article as well. So I would encourage listeners to go to your website and really kind of get in there, because it's one of the you're one of the few people that I've seen actually make some suggestions there in that sense. There's a lot of stuff going on, and people haven't really dived into some actual actionable suggestions there of how we can make this work. So I love that. That was a great part of the article. Let me ask you as well, some of the questions that I'm hearing for people in the age group that I work with, 55 and up, so it's people that are pre-retirees or right there already at retirement and taking distributions. Social Security comes into mind, and they're thinking, well, should I go ahead and turn on Social Security early? What would you share with listeners who might be considering something like that?
I think that's a mistake. So there is another column at Kotlikoff.net that I think you referenced. If you go down, I've got a whole bunch of columns, but it's like the 6th or 7th or 8th one down on the right side. It's about, should you take Social Security kind of to restore your cash position, given you might have just lost your job and think you're not going to get back to work for 9 months. So what should you do? Well, if you're 62, you could take Social Security early, but it's going to be dramatically reduced compared to taking it, let's say at 70, where it would be 70% or so higher if you waited. So my suggestion, and I go through this using my company's software, which is called Maxify Planner, so it's M-A-X-I-F-I. Anybody wants to take a look at it, maxify.com. So my suggestion is you tap in your 401k money or 403b money, IRAs, your retirement account money, preferably the Roth money if you have it, because your tax bracket's going to be low. Withdrawals from the Roth are going to be non-taxable, and you try and wait as long as possible to take Social Security. Now, if you don't have enough money in your retirement account, or you're sure the market's going to rebound, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure the market's going to drop 50% from its peak. It dropped 86 from its peak in the Great Depression. I call this the Greatest Depression because it's much going to be bigger. I think it's going to drop more. But anyway, if you're convinced it's going to go up, you don't want to touch your retirement account money, then one thing to do is take Social Security now, but realize that when you get to full retirement age, you can suspend your benefit and start it up again at 70, and it will be about 30% higher because you've suspended it, 24 to 30% higher, depending on how old you are exactly, because you suspended it and restarted it, and you're going to then get these what are called delayed retirement credits. Another important thing to realize is that if you take your Social Security benefits early, like at 62, and you say, okay, now you're taking these benefits, and you've just you've been on furlough, and now let's say 9 months from now, your boss calls you and says, hey, come on back to work, we're starting up again. And you say to yourself, well, gee, I'm taking the Social Security benefits, and if I go back to my job, which is paying me, let's say 50, 60,000 a year, I'm going to lose all those benefits because of what's called the earnings test. And I don't want, I'm going to lose 50 cents on the dollar, and I'm going to have to pay Uncle Sam and the state of Georgia, whatever, taxes that are maybe 30 cents on the dollar. So while I'm going to work for 20 cents on the dollar, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to stay retired. That's the wrong, that's a big mistake if you have that mentality, if you have that in your head, because you've got some misinformation in your head. Because Social Security has something called the adjustment of the reduction factor. So if the earnings test really is not a real thing, because if you lose money to the earnings test, when you hit full retirement age, the Social Security will automatically raise your benefit level in light of all the benefits that you've lost. So they'll raise the level for the rest of your life. So the earnings test is not a real thing, but it looks like it's a kind of an apparent thing because your check's been cut and you think you're never going to get it back. You think this is just lost money, but it's not the case. So everybody needs to understand about the adjustment of the reduction factor. It's a very esoteric thing, but I read about it in that column. and not think that, if they take Social Security, now they're in a 50% extra higher tax bracket. Not the case at all. I mean, there are some, a handful of people that take Social Security who will actually lose their, for whom the earnings test is a real thing, because it's true that this particular benefit that they're taking will be adjusted upward. But if they're going to flip onto a different benefit, like a widow's benefit, when they hit full retirement age, then the fact that if they're going to get this one, and the fact that this one has been raised doesn't help, because they're going to end up with a higher of the two. So you really need to ultimately run yourself. I don't want to be too pushy here, but our software can handle this question. This is the Maxify.com program. So another thing that your listeners may be interested in, Chris, is the idea of taking retirement account money, especially if you can take Roth money, and using it to pay off your mortgage, because mortgage rates have not come down. Bond rates, lending rates have come down. The long-term treasury rate is around 1.25. The mortgage rate is 3.75 that you've got. There's a 2.5 percentage point differential. You can earn 2.5 percentage points real, perfectly safely, by just taking money out of your retirement account and paying off the mortgage. Now you say to yourself, gee, but I'm going to get the deferral advantage. If I take money out, I'm going to pay taxes now. I'm not going to be able to defer the taxes. Well, the deferral advantage has gone away because the rates of return now are so low that whether you pay taxes now or pay them in the future, there's no advantage to waiting on that score. The retirement, in other words, the big advantage of 401ks of deferring is not there. The other big advantage of 401k has to do with tax brackets. I'd like to defer, to wait until I'm in a low tax bracket to withdraw money from my 401k. But if you've lost your job right now, it makes them crazy to say, well, I'm going to take out some 401k money and actually pay off my mortgage because I've just lost my job and I might need that as a nest egg. But if you don't have to pay your mortgage payment every month, you're going to be more liquid. And you're actually in a low tax bracket now if you've lost your job for this year.
Right.
You see the point? Right. So, so this can be, I've shown an example in this article. It got 500,000 hits. It's on Forbes, but it's actually posted at Kotlikoff.net. It's about cashing out your 401k to pay off your mortgage. This can be, a big deal for middle class household. It could be a $100,000 gain in their lifetime spending in present value by doing this. It's like finding $100,000 on the street this afternoon. So there are things that you can do in this context of this terrible situation that we're in to try and redeem your finances. And so just again, I would say try and get by without taking Social Security early. If you have to, don't worry about the earnings test unless you are one of those 15% or so of recipients who are in this situation where they can get a higher benefit from something else, let's say later on. And then if you do have to take your Social Security early, realize that you can suspend it when you hit full retirement age. And also, and again, don't worry about the earnings test for most people. And then the other thing, again, is to consider paying off your mortgage, because that's a terrific investment opportunity. Perfectly safe, 2.5% real. You can't get it anywhere else in the universe, right?
Yeah. So I love it because it's working out nicely. I was going to ask you the second thing about the mortgage there, because that was such a great tip. And I saw that in the article. And so since we're on limited time, in the next 4 minutes, we'll close it out here, because that was such a great thing. And I wanted to make sure people understand that Dr. Kotlikoff, the author of Get What's Yours, Social Security, when I go out and I do my seminars, when I talk about Social Security, that's the book that I hold up, that green book. So if it sounds complicated and maybe not intuitive on some of the solutions we talked about, I would definitely recommend getting a copy of that book, getting onto the website as well.